Welcome back. This is still TV3NewDay. You're welcome. And of course, technology is what we're talking about and its impact on education. Now, literally, our lives are guided by technology. I mean, every sphere of our life, including education, work, and what have you, which is why the statistics indicate that as of 2024, 48% of the African population, was using smartphones. And that's because there's a new wave, a big wave of internet connectivity. So we're told that a quarter of the African continent is using the internet, and this could go up by, 4/5 of the entire population in Africa. And how we're using this to impact our lives in various ways is what matters. When it comes to education, we're told that about 2 billion children as of 2013 were spending 4/5 of their time outside school on the internet, whether it was Wikipedia, Google, YouTube. That's where they were living their lives. And so it's become important for educators to find ways to inculcate technology into their teaching and learning materials. And in fact, there's a quote here on Business Insider that says that the future of education and its success will not be entirely based on technology, but on how educators can utilize technology to their advantage in the classroom. So what support might teachers need to do this effectively? We're talking tertiary education in the country, and of course, due to the advent of COVID, we all realized that a lot more students had to adjust, along with the lecturers, had to adjust to studying online. There were many complaints here and there. Students were not comfortable writing their exams online. A lot of them complained about internet connectivity. Those who live far did not even have access to smartphones, computers, and all that. But they had to manage to, write the exams and be part of the class. And so moving forward, what can we do to ensure that education is made even more accessible through technology? Joining me in the studios this morning is the founder of Knutsford University College. He's Bishop John Kwamina, SL. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And you look very, very white, I must say. And also, we have John Eko Ampa, SL, and he's an alumnus from University of Ghana, Legon. You just completed.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good to have you. Joining us also via Zoom is Peter Antipati. He's the Executive Director for the Institute of Education Studies. Good morning to you as well, and I hope you're well.
Good morning.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, great. I'll start off with you, John, because I remember that in 2020, when COVID, surged in the country and we had to shut down schools, students had to find a way to survive. We spoke to a number of them here and they kept complaining and complaining. I mean, someone said that in her house, the only place where she can get internet is when she stands on top of the wall. So she had to always go there to be part of the lectures. Otherwise, she was going to miss out, unfortunately. What was it like for you?
Well, during my time on campus, at that time I was on campus, some students were forced to stay at home because it was a bit optional. You could vary. You could just come to campus or just be at home. At that time, the SSA, that's the non-teaching staff, were on strike as well. They were led by Mr. Zakaria. So I also had to, be an interim porter in my hall. That is John Mensah Sabah Hall as well. Okay. So I was there very early in the morning every day, trying to help out with other students as well. So my basic challenges there were distractions, because you have to attend to students as well as focus on your 3-hour each topic or 3-hour each subject. Courses, and this was very stressful because every day you have class, and then one class can last about 3 hours, and then you have to deal with the challenges of data as well. At that
you were
time,
doing your class online?
Yes, I was doing my class online as well.
For 3 hours?
Yes, 3 hours per subject. Yes, I had about 3 or 4 a day. Yes, so you had to cope with that, and then following the rollout of the online teaching system. There was provision through Vodafone by the University of Ghana.
I remember
I think 5 gig worth of data.
Yes.
But if you calculate that having 3 credit hour courses online for about 3 subjects or 4 subjects,
it was not enough.
It was not enough. So there was also, the high cost of purchasing data as well.
How was connectivity like? You were lucky you were on campus, but even University of Ghana, the connectivity is not that great.
Yes, and it also depends on the position you are on campus, because there are some Wi-Fi routers that are working and others not so much. And when you are at the Porter's Lodge of Mensah Sabah Hall, at that time it was weak. So you'd have to rely on your data or on your mobile data
How were the other students who were not on campus managing? Students who lived outside Accra didn't have access to all these gadgets and internet connectivity.
Yes, when you ask them, I had friends like that. I had friends from the north. I was in the engineering school. I had friends from the north, and then one thing they will tell you is that the university advises that they go to stations or close stations which had, I mean, good connectivities, or they should adapt by going to internet cafes as well to try and use the internet system there as well, which was very tough because if there are 5 towns where the internet connectivity is better, you would have to travel 5 towns to get that. And sometimes you have to do this every day because for engineering students, we had classes every day, sometimes starting from 7:30. Yes, till 7:30 p.m.
And you did this continuously till you even wrote your exams?
Yes.
You wrote your exams online?
Yes.
How difficult was that?
It was very stressful because at that time, everyone was adapting. Yeah. Even teachers. Yeah. So a lecturer will think that you may cheat. So he would bring questions that would make you ponder. Yeah. And not necessarily what he has taught you. So this will require research, which then again require fast technology. Yeah. Which require expensive gadgets, which only people who are privy to this can do. Can do, yeah. Not those who are in these remote regions. Wow. Then again, it was stressful for those in the north and others as well. Yeah.
Bishop, let me bring you in because you founded NASFOD, and so of course you do understand the day-to-day running of tertiary institutions. COVID must have, I mean, it hit all of us by surprise. We didn't expect this, but technology has always been there. And there had been a lot of articles that indicated that we were moving towards, a time when technology was taking over completely. So we must have been prepared to some extent, to embrace technology with regards to education. But did you see it coming this fast?
Thank you very much, my dear. I didn't see it coming this fast. Yes, even just as you said, we knew about it. There were several research that indicated that the way to go is technology. Yeah. But you will agree with me, in our part of our world, we haven't been as quick and fast as others. Yeah. And so gradually we're waiting to be able to equip ourselves very well. Unfortunately, COVID taught us to get quicker than we are thinking. Yeah. And so we had to really look around and do all we could at a time. Yeah. And I appreciate my younger brother's ordeal, but that was the way we had to, use to be able to continue with life and with education.
How did you manage? I mean, what did you have to do instantly? That's a private university, by the way, and so I'm guessing that in that instance, access to internet connectivity and all these gadgets would be easier than some of these public institutions. But it wasn't that simple, was it?
It wasn't that simple because, just as he said, COVID has locked us down. Now lectures will have to be given online. Now you have to train teachers immediately. And we didn't have very good learning management systems where our programs were already installed. And so within very short space of time, you need to get all of these things ready so teachers will know how to deliver, and even with students, some form of orientation for them to be able to be on it. Again, we know that in our part of our world, data is very expensive, and two, it's not too sustainable depending upon where you are too. You have students complain about the cost of data, even though the school tried. We tried to provide some using Vodafone and others. Yeah. They complain it wasn't still enough. You have to buy for students, you have to buy for faculty. And so it wasn't easy for us.
Peter, so, the founder of a private university says it wasn't easy, as against what, a student of a public university is also saying. We would have thought that maybe life would have been much better for private institutions during COVID and, relying on technology. I'm sure you did a lot of study on all of this during the COVID period to find out exactly how technology was impacting education. What did you discover?
Yeah, thank you. on the 20th of March, 4 days after schools were closed in Ghana, I released the paper which was published on the Global Partnership of Education's website.
Yeah.
In fact, that paper was ranked as the fifth best read paper in 2020. And that paper talked about how countries like Ghana and others were struggling to migrate from classroom teaching to the online platforms.
Yeah.
I did that because I realized that when schools were closed down, a lot of us, I mean, those in the public universities, private universities, secondary schools, and even those in the primary and in the kindergarten, who were supposed to migrate to online platforms to continue their education, were struggling, whilst countries in other parts of the world had easily moved to these platforms to continue their teaching and learning. Now, just this week, UNESCO and UNICEF have released a paper, a report on the way education was carried out. And it's clear that out of the regions that were monitored, it is only in West and Central Africa that we were not able to use online platforms to continue education. 91% of education was carried out on online platforms, and the least region was West and Central Africa. Wow. What am I driving at? We have not over the years made enough investment in technology when it comes to teaching and learning. We are so much used to the face-to-face interaction to the extent that even when we are doing distance education in Ghana, people will still have to travel from wherever they are to their various study centers and still meet the tutors face-to-face for the learning to take place. And that is why we have struggled and we continue to struggle when COVID came and learning needed to be switched to online platforms. It is disturbing that in the 21st century, 2021, most of our universities and private and public have not done enough investment in ensuring that they implement blended learning. Blended learning is combining online and then face-to-face teaching. So that if we were doing that, then it would have been very easy for us to now navigate to the online platforms when schools were shut down. And we are not able to do this because most of our teachers and lecturers have not had enough training in using these online platforms. So most of the universities, when the schools went down, that was when they started to train some of the lecturers who were technologically not savvy and those who even know how to use technology but could not find their way out on various learning platforms that have been instituted by the universities. Again, our students also have challenges with the use of digital devices. And we have not over the years find ways and means to make sure that we resource our students in order to have access to some of these digital devices. I made a proposal last year during the COVID time that one of the things that the student loans platform could use was to supply students laptops and other digital devices during this pandemic so that those who cannot afford those kind of digital devices will be able to get access to them. The Deputy Minister of Education then picked it up and I saw Students Loan Trust Fund trying to do something like that. So the issue of lack of digital devices in relation to students even at the tertiary level, it's also a very big point when it comes to inability of us to use technology to teach in our various tertiary institutions. And one of the other points is the issue of data cost. When you talk of data cost, people will come and tell you that in Ghana, data is cheaper, but that is not so. Data is expensive. You know, we all use data, so we can attest to that.
Exactly.
So it becomes difficult for students to spend a lot of money to access some of these digital platforms because you are doing Zoom with your students, you are on Google Meet with your students, and the student will have to stay on, like my friend in the studio said, 3 hours for teaching and learning. And you know that these 3 hours, you need data to be able to do that. That is why during that period, you see some of the students moving from wherever they were back to campus to access free internet.
But so Peter, whose fault? Even though I don't want us to lay blame necessarily, whose fault is it that we did not graduate onto technology early enough? Is it government? Is it the institutions that should have done that on their own?
It's a systematic failure, and I don't want to. All of us are involved.
Okay.
We have an ICT policy which was landed, I think, 2003, okay. And then it was reviewed around 2007. That was when we had this ban-redu laptop policy, one laptop a child policy. And then that policy has been reviewed in 2015 also. Now, over the years, although we seem to have some of these things in books and we have tried to integrate technology into education, there have not been any concerted effort from government to ensure that technology is made part of our education. Yeah. So you see students learning ICT on desks, on tables, and teachers drawing computers on various whiteboards and blackboards for students to learn. So in terms of government, a lot of investors have not gone to that sector, that area, although we keep on saying that we are integrating technology into our education. Okay. Then the universities have also not made enough investment in ensuring that technology is made part of our education. You go to our various universities, and most of their lecture rooms do not even have projectors. Yeah. Lecturers struggling over projectors and other things. Most of the lecturers are not so much literate when it comes to these online platforms. And it will interest you to know that it is when this COVID came that some of the universities started training their staff on how to use this online platform. Okay. So you might not be able to lay hands on one particular sector that they are to be blamed. I think all of us have not been able to do much when it comes to integrating technology into our teaching and learning. And as we go on, we should be able to do that to ensure that we do not lose out in the world, because the world is really changing.
Let me bring Bishop in, because I'm sure that prior to setting up NATSFOR, there was a lot of research that went into why there was a need for that, of course, to augment the work that was being done by the public universities already. I'm sure that you noticed some cracks, and not just you necessarily, because I know you had a team that worked on it. You noticed certain cracks. I don't know if technology and the lack of it thereof was one of the reasons why you set up NATSFOR, but from the onset, did you put in place some measures to ensure that you at least make it available to students, so that if they didn't have access to it, even from primary up until the tertiary level, they would be able to take advantage of that opportunity?
Good, we did, and indeed it was one of the reasons for wanting to help. And I remember very well, initially it was a policy each student must have his or her own laptop. Yes. And I tell you, my dear, it was difficult to implement.
Why so?
Because they couldn't just afford it. They couldn't. We had an option where we could buy and give them out even on credit basis. And the fees, adding up to the fees that has to be charged, was an issue. Okay. NATSFOR had to reduce its fees from where we had wanted to start from to about 50% before we could get our very first students. So right from the word go, we had issues with funding and ability to pay. Yeah. In fact, it will interest you. We have smart boards like you have in here. We have a couple of them. And until COVID came, we weren't using them very well. And it's because faculty members aren't too trained and are not used to such technologies. And so that itself discouraged us from investing so much at that point. But to, sort of make do with what we have and, seek to grow. But just as we said from the beginning, nobody expected this coming. Yeah. And so we must admit that we're all caught up in the world.
Do you regret may be a strong word, but do you regret not taking advantage of all that you had? Because you're saying that you had all these screens and stuff in your school, but you weren't using them.
Oh, of course,
do you wish that you had done that?
We had wished we had grown. We wish we had become a technological fully one, because we knew that is the way to go now.
Moving forward now, how is this going to impact education, tertiary especially?
Obviously, we can't do away with it than to grow well in it, to invest in it, and to begin using them.
Okay.
Now we're trying to do, as my colleague suggested, blended learning.
Yeah.
So that we can give ourselves time for students and faculty to get fully used to. And so they'll do a bit of online lessons and then do in-person as well. And at Knoxford, we're trying to build teaching labs where a teacher's office could have everything he or she needed to be able to teach online.
I see.
And again, we're trying to introduce students also to various learning software. And you know, that itself is another learning curve. So we're hoping, one good thing about COVID is to help us begin to run at a pace faster than we were doing.
Yeah.
To be able to catch up with the world.
But does it mean that cost of education is going to increase as a result of the introduction?
That's another dimension. Initially, it will raise cost of operations, and obviously, if you want to transfer them to students, then that is likely to raise fees up. But we don't intend to do that.
Okay.
We intend to go on long-term basis where we could invest and spread it. But we have no option than to come abreast with it.
What about you? I mean, you're out of school now, and I'm sure that some of the requirements for finding a job includes being computer literacy. And again, there are some students who up until the university had not even seen a computer before, and they're all, you know, studying with us. For you, what does this mean moving forward? Because you've had to be thrown into the ocean and find a way to swim. You struggled and you survived anyway. But for those who are coming up, what are they to do?
I mean, all that we have said here is actually a true definition of the huge digital divide in Ghana, and also deals with interest. You know, as my big boss said, it will be the choice of the government or institutions to transfer these costs onto students. But then again, education is costly. Yeah. But if the government is interested in educating these young ones or these ones that are still in the tertiary and lower, I mean, there should be a focus. And then if there's interest, definitely there's going to be funding of interest. So I think there should be a case where our teaching assistants on campus should be used effectively. Because one thing that I noticed during those times was that the teachers try to use up all the time to make students understand what the teachers needed to pass on or what the lecturers needed to pass on online. Yes. But not everyone learns that way. Okay. And then the TAs or the teaching assistants were a bit dormant because you would only be working if you are helping out these lecturers with their projects or you are marking scripts.
But I mean, especially because I was in University of Ghana, and we used to complain that sometimes the lecturers just come and give handouts. I mean, they teach and everything, but it is only when the PA comes in to break it down further that we understand.
Yes. And then the PA breaks it down when there's a chance. But if all the time is used up on online learning, the PA will not get the chance, or the TA or the teaching assistant will not get the chance and the time, because the time is already used up by lecturers. I mean, imagine having 4 3-hour courses in a day. Where are you going to get the time to put the teaching assistant to give that extra time lecture or that extra time understanding? So rather than use up all the time hoping that students are able to focus online, or hoping that students are able to grab everything being communicated or conferred or through the online system, why not use or employ these teaching assistants who are on campus with us? I mean, you teach for 2 hours and then there's a time or there's a day where you sacrifice the teaching to give understanding to students by letting the teaching assistants take them through exercises or further understanding.
Yeah. Do you think that technology could also address the issue of overcrowding in our universities?
It is completely the choice of the institutions and the lecturers.
because then maybe, because we all have different times that we go online and study, you can still take in more. And I'll bring Bishop in so he can respond to this before I come to Peter finally. But what do you think, Bishop? Would it be better if, because we're doing online or maybe the blended, studies, we can have one batch study online, the other batch in person, and then we can have them alternate. That way we can take in more people.
Exactly, and exactly that's what we're doing. And issues like COVID will force us to do that. Now we're trying as much as possible to avoid crowding students. And one way to go is to use technology to do that. Okay. But I can understand my friends, and it's been a constant report where, because students are not too used to it, it's become very stressful and difficult. And so a lot of them will prefer the in-person learning. Okay. But just like we've said, this is something we have to live with it. Yeah. And so we must try as much as possible. And with all the difficulties and the challenges, right from the gadgets to data, internet, we still must love to do that. Yeah. And is a reason we still bring in some aspect of in-person. And yes, the teaching assistants to come. Where numbers are not too many, you can do that. But large numbers is very difficult, of course, because you still want to avoid.
Final question to Peter before we go. I want you to address the issue of overcrowding in our universities. Look at the number of students that got admission into University of Ghana 2 years ago, and there were only about 900 beds available, at the time that we reported it. And so thousands of students didn't have a choice than to find other ways of finding shelter. Do you think that in, introducing technology a bit more on our campuses, we can use that to address this issue, since we still don't have the infrastructure to take in more numbers?
Yeah, sure. That is the way to go. That is what most of the open universities does. You need to get some of your students online. You see, the Minister of Education has been talking about improving the gross tertiary enrollment ratio. In Ghana, we have about 18% of gross tertiary enrollment ratio, and he's targeting somewhere around 53. And in doing that, you see that he is now pushing that D7 should be admitted by the universities. Yeah. Now, what all this means is that you are going to have a lot of students on campus. So some of the things that we've been talking about is to ensure that infrastructure is upgraded in our universities. But one sure way to make sure you get all these students into accessing some form of tertiary education is to push most of these people online. Okay. And that is what we have not been able to do well in this country. I was talking about distance education. Yeah. We say students are doing distance education. If you say somebody is doing distance education in the advanced world, the person is in his country or his community and is accessing every kind of information through a portal by the university. In Ghana, when you say somebody is doing distance education, the person would need to travel every weekend to a particular study center and meet teachers or tutors to handle them. Okay. That is what we need to do. We need to push most of these things online. We understand that the digital divide is wide. We understand that there are challenges doing this, but we need to start from somewhere. All right. So the tertiary institutions, the management of these institutions need to make conscious effort to gradually move most of their students online. Okay. And then we will be able to get a lot of people to access tertiary education and achieve the objective of the
Thank you. Thank you so much. Peter Ante is the Executive Director for IFEST, Institute for Education Studies. Bishop John Kwamena Essel is the founder of Knutsford University College. And John Eko Ampa Essel is an alumnus of University of Ghana. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. And we have a conversation. Today is World Heart Day, and Kuki will be having a conversation about the National Cardiothoracic Center and about all of this as well. So keep watching. We'll be right back.